Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Ode Enders. My name is Max, and in today's video I'm doing a highly requested topic, how to apply a fragrance and many other nuances. If you are new to the channel, welcome. I talk about fragrances and I just love fragrances, so I figured I'd share my personal thought process on how to apply them and other things that you can consider. Before we jump into everything, if you like the idea of enthusiast fragrance content or you just want to know more about fragrances, definitely subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be trying to pump out a lot of content here. And of course, like the video as it really does help it out. Now, before I talk about where to apply fragrances, let's talk about where not to apply fragrances, because a lot of people, they just buy a cologne and then they start spraying it everywhere. And then they wonder, why is my skin getting irritated? Why am I red in this area? And that's a very common mistake. I made that mistake many, many times. And the most common thing that people make a mistake on is they buy a cologne, they buy a fragrance, and they put it right on the bottom of their neck, okay? And then they wonder, oh my God, why do I have red bumps? Why am I irritated? Well, fragrances have alcohol in them. Unless it states that it's alcohol-free, it has alcohol, 100%. So alcohol is, of course, astringent, and it can irritate skin, especially if you just shaved. If you just shaved and you put cologne on, you're gonna be looking like you got choked or something. I mean, seriously, you'll be completely red, irritated. Never, ever, ever spray cologne on a freshly shaved neck or even the bottom of your neck in general, in my opinion. Now, what are some things to consider when applying fragrances? So the first tip that I will give to you guys is fragrances love moisturized skin, okay? So get in a good habit of putting lotion, or I even hear people put Vaseline on the places where they apply fragrances. Me personally, I don't use Vaseline, I just use lotion. So in the morning, during your skincare routine or even at night before you go to bed, put lotion on, make sure your skin is moisturized, especially where you apply fragrances. Some other things to consider are, what type of scent is it? Is it a really light, airy citrus scent? Is it a super dark, resinous, strange scent that could potentially offend people? Is it, what's the concentration? Is it an extrait, which is super strong typically? Or is it an eau de cologne, which is very, very weak typically and very low perfume oil concentration? How hot is it outside? You don't want to wear a very cloying, sweet fragrance a lot of the time in super high heat because it will get too much. It'll choke people out. So these are things to consider and just some things to think about in your own personal collection when trying to figure out what you're going to wear that particular day. Now, in terms of where I recommend you apply fragrances, a lot of people talk about pulse points. These being the wrists, behind the ear, on the side of the neck, even back of the thigh. Those are very popular positions to put fragrances because the heat makes it evaporate and thus people can smell you. That makes a whole lot of sense, and I think it works very well. A lot of people also talk about the chest, but we'll break all this down. So where do I personally put fragrance? I tend to avoid putting too much fragrance on my chest. Reason being, a lot of people do this, then they go nose blind to the fragrance because it is constantly evaporating into their nose, and then they wonder, well, why did I buy this $450 bottle of Amouage if I can't smell it? You can smell it. You're going nose blind. So I typically try to avoid spraying it directly below my nose, and instead I opt for behind the ear, side of the neck, back of the neck, and I've even seen people suggest the bend of your elbows or even top of the forearms. I've seen department store workers spray the tops of their forearms. And the reason for that is as they sort of communicate with customers, they're moving their hands and the scent can be smelled off of them. Same can be said for the wrists. This is a pulse point. I personally don't do this because I wear watches and, well, I don't want to get my watch covered in fragrance oil. So I would say, this is a personal preference. If you wear very long-sleeved clothing a lot of the time, you're going to just, muddle the scent. And if you do apply it on your wrists, never rub a fragrance. Always tap. The reason why is if you rub a fragrance after spraying it, it destroys some of the top notes and it can just sort of muddle and ruin the fragrance experience in general. Some more obscure places to put fragrance: the very famous perfumer Roja Dove, who obviously has the brand Roja. He suggests you put fragrance on the back bend of your knee and even on your ankle. Yes, I'm not kidding. His thought process for this is scent rises, so as you walk, not only does it leave a trail behind you, but say you're standing with someone and having a conversation, it is rising up into them and they can smell you. I've never personally done that. I'm not really that type of guy, but like if you want to try that, by all means, try that. Another very popular method of applying fragrance is putting your fragrance on clothing. Now, one thing that's very, very important, if you're going to put fragrance on clothing, you need to know the color of the fragrance. If it's very dark and you're spraying it on something white like this sweater, it will stain and you might not be able to get it out. But if it's something neutrally colored or perhaps just very light colored, you're probably fine. Now, where to spray it on clothes? Well, I do like to spray my chest sometimes, but I also like to spray, funnily enough, my shoulders. I think shoulders produce quite a lot of heat, and it isn't directly under your nose, so you don't go as nose blind to things. And I do find myself going nose blind to a lot of fragrances very, very often. And I don't know, that's just my personal experience. But I would recommend shoulders, maybe lower on the clothing, chest area, not too heavy if you find yourself going nose blind. Now, the all-important question: how many sprays? How do I know how many sprays, Maxwell? Well, this is Amouage Royal Tobacco, okay? This is a very dense, heavy, thick scent. Now, how many sprays should I do of this? Should I do one, a half spray, 2 sprays? You have to test these things. I have tested all these fragrances in my collection so many times that I actually know on an individual basis how many sprays I feel I can get away with, and I really just sort of try to prioritize having my fragrance be discovered rather than announced. That is a rule you will hear quite a bit. Basically, don't overspray so you don't choke everyone out. With a fragrance as strong as Amouage Royal Tobacco, I typically do 2 sprays. And where I place those sprays are just one on each side of my neck. That is it. That will last me the entire day. Now, for something as citrusy as, let's say, Jo Malone Orange Marmalade, this scent is very different from Amouage Royal Tobacco. You can literally get away with, 10 sprays of this fragrance, and that sounds absurd, but then you realize, well, what type of scent is this? This is a citrusy fragrance. It's very, very realistic smelling. That is what Jo Malone really does well with their fragrances. And as a result, this fragrance maybe only lasts 2 hours with very soft projection after about an hour. So even though 10 sprays might sound ridiculous, you're going to have to reapply this fragrance maybe even a couple times throughout the day. Another very common rule you will hear people mention is more people can smell your fragrance than you realize, okay? And this rule is interpreted, at least by me, as pull back on the sprays a little bit, because even though it might seem that it's not that strong, for other people, they perceive it to be stronger than you, okay? I don't know how true that is, to be perfectly honest. I believe that I have a good idea of how strong something is on me because I can smell it on myself, because I don't tend to spray it on my chest, so I try not to go nose blind. But I would emphasize caution in applying fragrances. You don't want to choke people out. You don't want to become known as the cologne guy, which I think is a dreaded nomenclature or tag that people don't want to be associated with. So I hope these tips and just my personal thought process about applying fragrances and thinking about the type of scent that you're applying has helped you guys out. If you enjoy the content, be sure to hit the like button and of course subscribe to the channel. I'll be posting way more individual reviews on all of these fragrances behind me. In fact, comment down below, which fragrance behind me here do you want to see me review? I have many. I have only done maybe, I think, 3 individual reviews on the channel, and I'm looking forward to do more. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.